Welcome to Stories Junction. Let's begin today's story. My name is Ethan. When people hear that I saw my ex-wife, Lena, for the first time in years at our daughter's graduation, they often assume it was some cinematic moment, a rush of triumph, maybe, or a wave of closure. But standing there in that crowded auditorium in Seattle, watching her from a distance, I didn't feel victorious. There was no grand realization that she'd finally seen what she threw away. Instead, it stirred up memories of everything I'd clawed my way through, everything I'd rebuilt after she tried to shatter me. That moment wasn't the story's beginning, though. It was just a chapter. To understand it, I need to take you back to where it all started, years ago, in Chicago, on the night I met Lena. I'd flown to Chicago to visit my oldest friend, Derek, who just opened a cozy little restaurant in Wicker Park. If you've ever been to that neighborhood, you know it hums with life. Art galleries, dive bars, and a pulse that makes you feel like anything could happen. Derek was riding high on his new venture, and after a long day helping him with some setup, he suggested we hit a blues club a few blocks away to unwind. "Just a drink or two," he said. "You need it, man." So we went, snagged a small table near the stage, and let the music, a gritty, soulful harmonica and guitar, wash over us. Everything was easy, relaxed, until I noticed her. She was at the bar, alone, sipping something clear from a glass. Dark hair, sharp eyes, and a quiet confidence that made her stand out without trying. I figured she was waiting for someone, a date, maybe, or friends, but she didn't check her phone or look around impatiently. She just sat there, listening to the music, like she was exactly where she meant to be. I must have been staring too long, because Derek nudged me with a grin. "Go talk to her, Ethan. You're not subtle." I laughed it off, but he was right. I was curious. So I walked over, nerves buzzing, and said something simple, probably too cheesy like, "Is the music always this good here?" To my surprise, she didn't brush me off. She turned, smiled, and answered like we'd been mid-conversation all night. Her name was Lena. She was in Chicago from Portland for a tech conference that had wrapped up that day. She wasn't big on bars, she said, but the neon sign outside the club had caught her eye as she walked back to her hotel. "I figured I'd stop in for one song," she said. "Now I'm on my third." We talked. Or maybe we vibed is a better word. It was effortless, like we'd skipped the usual small talk and jumped straight to something real. We laughed about the conference's terrible coffee, swapped stories about our worst travel mishaps, and argued playfully about whether blues or jazz had more soul. Hours passed like minutes. The club started to empty out, and Lena glanced at her phone, wincing. "I've got a 7 a.m. flight back to Portland," she said. Neither of us wanted to call a night, but reality was knocking. We swapped numbers, and I walked her to the corner outside the club. She gave me a quick hug, said, "Don't be a stranger," and vanished into the Chicago night. I didn't overthink it then, just a great night with someone I clicked with. But looking back, that smoky blues club was the spark of something bigger than I could have imagined. That's where things began with Lena, but it wasn't a one-night fluke. Back home in Denver, I couldn't shake her from my mind. We started texting the next day. Nothing heavy, just little check-ins that turned into long threads. Soon, we were calling each other late at night, talking about everything and nothing. She'd tell me about her latest project at work. I'd ramble about the carpentry jobs I was taking on. It felt natural, like we were building something without even trying. A few months in, we both admitted it. We were falling for each other. Long distance wasn't ideal. Denver to Portland isn't a quick trip, but we made it work. Weekend visits, red-eye flights, and endless video calls kept us close. After nearly a year of that, I made a choice that flipped my world upside down. I packed up my life and moved to Portland. Lena was worth it. I wanted to build a future where she was. Portland felt like a fresh start. Lena and I moved in together, and those early days were electric. She was a force, always chasing the next goal, working late on pitches for her company, her mind racing with ideas. I loved that about her, even if it meant she was sometimes distracted. I found steady work as a carpenter, taking on custom furniture projects and home renovations. Our differences worked. She was a wildfire, sparking new plans. I was the ground, steady and patient. We balanced each other. It didn't take long for us to make it official. We got married in a small ceremony by the Columbia River, just close friends and family. A year later, our daughter, Ava, was born. Holding her for the first time, I thought, this is it. This is what I've been working toward. For a while, life was exactly that. Full, messy, beautiful. Lena's career was climbing, my work was steady, and Ava's laughter filled our home. Even the tough days, the late nights, felt worth it. But nothing stays perfect forever. Lena's job started demanding more. Longer hours, then overnight trips. One trip turned into 3, then weeks away. When she was home, she was glued to her laptop or too exhausted to connect. I was proud of her success, but it came at a price. Meanwhile, my own work hit a rough patch. Clients dried up, and I was scraping to keep us afloat. We were still in the same house, but it felt like we were living on different planets. The warmth we'd had was fading, and I didn't know how to pull it back. Life in Portland with Lena and Ava had once felt like a dream I didn't want to wake from, but by the time Ava was 4, that dream was starting to fray. Lena's career in tech was soaring. She was landing promotions, leading bigger projects, and getting noticed in ways that made me proud. But every step up came with a cost. Her days stretched longer, her trips grew frequent, and when she was home, she wasn't really there. She'd be on her phone, answering emails, or lost in thought about some deadline. I tried to spark a conversation, but it was like tossing a match in a damp wood. No flame, just smoke. I wasn't perfect either. My carpentry business was struggling. The Portland market was tough, too many contractors, not enough big jobs. I was taking on whatever I could, working late to finish custom pieces or small renovations. But the money wasn't what it used to be. Bills piled up, and I felt the pressure to keep us steady. I didn't want Lena to worry, so I buried myself in work, thinking if I could just hold it together, we'd find our way back to each other. But burying myself meant I was absent in my own way, and the distance between us grew. We weren't fighting, not yet, but we weren't connecting either. Our talks became practical. Who'd pick up Ava from daycare, what groceries we needed, whose turn it was to pay the electric bill. The laughter, the late-night talks from our early days felt like memories from someone else's life. I'd look at Lena sometimes, hoping for a glimpse of the woman I met in that Chicago blues club, but she was slipping away, and I didn't know how to reach her. Then came the night that broke everything open. I come home late from a job, bone-tired, and found Lena in the living room on the phone. She was laughing softly, her voice warm in a way I hadn't heard in months. Something about it hit me wrong. Not jealous, exactly, but uneasy. When she saw me, her smile vanished, and she ended the call quickly. "Work," she said, not meeting my eyes. I didn't push it, but the air felt heavy, like we both knew something was off. A week later, it boiled over. I'd overheard another call. Same tone, same quick hang up when I walked in. This time I asked, "Who's that?" My voice was calm, but my chest was tight. Lena snapped back, defensive, saying it was a colleague, nothing more. But the way she looked at me, like I was the one out of line, lit a fuse. Words spilled out, about her being gone, about us drifting, about me carrying everything alone. She fired back, saying I didn't understand her pressure, that I was holding her back. It escalated fast, and then she said it, her voice cold and sharp. "Maybe we should just get a divorce." The room went still. I stood there, stunned, like the ground had dropped out from under me. She didn't take it back. She just walked out, leaving me with those words echoing. I told myself she didn't mean it, that it was just anger talking. But 2 weeks later, I was served divorce papers at a job site, handed to me by some bored courier like it was junk mail. It wasn't just a divorce she wanted. She was going for everything. Full custody of Ava, the house, alimony, the works. The court process was a nightmare. Lena didn't just want out. She wanted to bury me. She painted me as a deadbeat father, said I was too unstable to care for Ava, claimed I'd been distant and unreliable. She twisted every late night I worked into neglect, every argument into proof I was unfit. I was floored. She knew how much I loved Ava, how I'd read her stories every night I could, how I'd rearranged my life for our family. But in that courtroom, none of it seemed to matter. Her lawyer spun a story, and she backed it up with a straight face, like the past decade hadn't happened. I fought back. I brought receipts, literally. Bank statements showing I paid for Ava's preschool, photos of us at the park, her drawings taped to my toolbox. But the judge barely glanced at them. It was like the system had already decided I was the problem. Lena got full custody. I was granted visitation, but it was limited, and the child support payments were brutal, more than I could manage with my business limping along. By the time the gavel fell, I was drained, financially, emotionally, everything. Then came the final blow. A few months after the divorce, I learned the truth through a mutual friend who couldn't stay quiet. Lena had been seeing someone, a co-worker she'd been traveling with for months. Those late-night calls, the work trips, they weren't about work. It was him. The betrayal wasn't just that she'd cheated. It was how she'd weaponized our life to erase me, knowing she was building something else on the side. I didn't confront her. What was there to say? She'd already taken everything I thought we had. I hit bottom after that. My savings were gone, eaten up by legal fees and support payments. My business was barely hanging on. I'd see Ava when I could, but those visits were short, and every goodbye gutted me. I felt like a failure, not just as a husband, but as a father, a man. I couldn't stay in our old house, surrounded by ghosts of what was, so I packed what little I had and moved to a cramped apartment across town. No one knew where I went, not Lena, not even Derek. I needed to disappear to figure out how to breathe again. But disappearing didn't mean giving up. Lying awake in that empty apartment, I made a choice. Lena could take what she wanted, but she wasn't going to define me. I wasn't going to let her lies be the end of my story. I didn't know how, but I was going to rebuild piece by piece, day by day, for Ava and for myself. After Lena tore through my life, leaving me with a hollowed-out version of everything I built, I could have stayed down. Part of me wanted to. Grief and betrayal have a way of making surrender feel easier than standing up. But lying in that dim, bare apartment in Portland, staring at a ceiling stained by someone else's mistakes, I decided I wasn't done. Lena might have thought she'd broken me, that her lies and her new life would keep me buried. She was wrong. I had a daughter who needed me, and I had myself to prove something to. So I started rebuilding one small, stubborn step at a time. First came the practical stuff, money or the lack of it. The divorce had gutted me financially. Legal fees, child support, and a struggling carpentry business left my bank account looking like a cruel joke. I was behind on rent, dodging calls from creditors, and taking on odd jobs just to eat. I knew I couldn't keep scraping by, so I got strategic. I started studying. Nights spent on free online courses about construction management, budgeting, anything that could give me an edge. I earned a couple of certifications, cheap ones that didn't require much up front, but opened doors. Slowly, I pitched bigger projects, kitchen remodels, custom decks. The pay wasn't instant, but it was better. By the end of the first year, I wasn't drowning anymore. Debts shrank, and I could breathe without feeling a knot in my chest. The emotional side was trickier. When someone you loved, who knew you inside out, turns you into a villain, it messes with your head. I carried shame, like I'd failed Ava, Lena, even myself. Anger was there too, hot and heavy, especially when I thought about how Lena had rewritten our story to justify her choices. I didn't know what to do with it all, so I took a step I'd never considered before. Therapy. It wasn't some grand fix, but sitting in a quiet office, talking to someone who didn't judge, helped me untangle the mess. I learned to name what I was feeling instead of letting it choke me. I also leaned on a few old friends who stuck around. Guys like Derek, who'd call just to check in, reminding me I wasn't the man Lena made me out to be. Bit by bit, I started seeing myself again. Physically, I made a promise to match the work I was doing inside. I let myself go during the divorce. Stress, eating, no sleep, looking as rough as I felt. That wasn't me. So I started small. Morning walks along the Willamette River, cutting out fast food, drinking water instead of beer. Eventually, I joined a gym, nothing fancy, just a place to lift weights and clear my head. The first time I caught my reflection and saw muscle instead of exhaustion, I actually smiled. It wasn't vanity. It was proof I was taking myself back. Through it all, Ava was my anchor. Lena had full custody, and my visitation was limited to every other weekend, supervised sometimes, which stung. But I never stopped showing up. I'd take Ava to the park, build little wooden toys with her, listen to her chatter about school. When I couldn't see her, I stayed in touch through her grandparents, sending letters, small gifts, whatever I could manage. Birthdays, holidays, I made sure she knew I was there. I'd leave voicemail she might not hear for years, just so she'd know her dad never walked away. One day, during a rare phone call arranged through her aunt, Ava said something that lit a fire in me. "I want to stay with you, Dad." Like all the time. She was only 10, but her words carried weight. I told her, "Focus on school, sweetheart. Graduate strong, and I'll be here, ready for you." It was a promise I meant with everything I had. By the third year, things were steadier. My business was growing. I'd landed a contract with a local developer, building custom homes. It wasn't riches, but it was enough to move to a better apartment, one with a spare room I hoped Ava might use someday. I was eating better, sleeping better, feeling like a man who'd earned his scars. That's when someone new came into my life, Maya. She wasn't a stranger. We'd known each other casually through a mutual friend, crossed paths at community events. Maya was kind, grounded, and she'd seen me at my lowest without flinching. We started talking more, then dating, and it felt easy. Not the wildfire passion of my early days with Lena, but something solid, real. I was upfront with her. No marriage for me. Not again. I've been through that fire. She nodded. No pressure, just understanding. Maya wasn't here to fix me. She was here to walk with me. As Ava's high school years rolled on, I kept my promise. I tracked her milestones, science fairs, soccer games, through whatever scraps of info I could get. I sent her a journal for her 16th birthday, pages blank for her to fill with her dreams. She called to thank me, her voice bright but careful, like she was guarding something. "Mom's been busy," she said once, and I didn't press. I knew Lena's world. Her new partner, her big career, probably left little room for the warmth Ava needed. I just listened, letting her know I was there. The turning point was coming, though I didn't know it yet. Ava's graduation was approaching, a moment I'd been working toward without realizing. I wanted to show up as the man I'd become, not the shadow Lena tried to leave behind. I bought a suit, nothing flashy, but tailored sharp, the kind that says you respect the occasion. For Ava, I got a gift, a silver necklace with a small compass pendant, engraved with her initials. It wasn't about the cost. It was about her finding her way, knowing I'd always be her north. When the day came, I'd be ready, not for Lena, not for anyone else, but for my daughter and for the life I'd rebuilt from nothing. The day of Ava's graduation arrived like a milestone I'd been running toward for years without knowing it. Seattle's spring air was crisp, the kind that makes you feel awake, alive. I'd driven up from Portland the night before, wanted to be early, to settle into the moment. This wasn't just about Ava crossing a stage. It was about everything we'd both survived to get here. I wasn't the man Lena had tried to erase anymore. I'd rebuilt myself, piece by piece, and today was for my daughter, not for settling scores. I'd chosen my suit carefully, dark gray, fitted just right, with clean lines that said I'd come through fire and still stood tall. Maya was with me, her quiet presence a steady anchor. She didn't fill the silence with chatter, just squeezed my hand as we walked into the auditorium. I picked a seat in the back, like I always did, preferring to watch from a distance where I could take it all in. The room filled with families, balloons, and the hum of anticipation. I scanned the crowd, not consciously looking for her, but knowing she'd be there. And then I saw her, Lena, front row, dressed like she was walking a red carpet, her new partner at her side. She hadn't changed, not in the ways that mattered. I felt a flicker of something, memory, not pain, and let it pass. The ceremony began with the usual. Speeches from teachers, a principal droning on about bright futures. I barely heard it. My eyes were on the graduates, waiting for Ava. When her name was called, I leaned forward, heart pounding. She walked across the stage, her smile wide but nervous, her cap slightly crooked. I clapped harder than I meant to, a grin breaking across my face. That was my girl, strong, bright, unstoppable. Maya nudged me, whispering, "She's amazing." I nodded, too full of pride to speak. The program dragged on, but I didn't care about the pomp or who got what award. I was here for Ava, for the promise I'd made to be there when she needed me. Then came the moment I didn't expect. Ava was chosen to give a short speech on behalf of the student council. She stepped up to the podium, her voice steady but soft, talking about resilience, about the people who lift you up. I watched her, memorizing every word, every gesture. She scanned the crowd, her eyes moving over the sea of faces, and then they found me. For a second, the world stopped. I saw it in her face, recognition, connection, something deeper than words. She paused, just a beat, and then she said it, her voice clear through the microphone. I want to thank someone who's always been there, even when it was hard. Dad, I see you back there. Thank you for everything. I'm so proud of you. The auditorium faded away. My throat tightened and my eyes stung. I didn't care who heard or what they thought. My daughter had seen me. Not the lies Lena spun, not the broken man I'd been, but me now whole. I felt the shift in the room before I saw it. Heads turning, whispers rippling. People craned their necks to look at me, the guy in the back who'd just been called out. And then I caught Lena's eyes. She'd turned, her face a mix of shock and something else. Regret, maybe a realization. For the first time in years, she was seeing me, really seeing me. Not the defeated man she'd left behind, but the one who'd clawed his way back. I held her gaze for a moment, not out of anger, but because I could. Then I looked away, back to Ava, who was stepping down from the stage, her smile brighter than ever. When the ceremony ended, the crowd spilled onto the lawn outside. I stayed back, letting the chaos settle, but Ava found me before I could move. She broke through the sea of caps and gowns, her face lighting up as she ran toward me. "Dad," she called, and then she was in my arms, hugging me tight, like she was holding on to every missed moment. I hugged her back, my voice rough when I said, "I'm so proud of you, kid." She pulled back, grinning, and I handed her the small box with the compass necklace. Her eyes widened as she opened it, tracing the engraved initials with her finger. "It's perfect," she whispered, and I knew she understood what it meant. I saw Lena approaching from the corner of my eye, her partner trailing behind. Ava tensed, her smile fading just a fraction. Lena came up, all polished charm, acting like we were old friends who just bumped into each other. "Ethan, it's been a while," she said, her voice too bright. "You look good." I nodded, keeping it brief. "Thanks. I wasn't here for her performance." Ava shifted closer to me, and I could tell she wasn't interested in Lena's small talk either. Lena tried to pivot, asking Ava about the speech, but Ava's answers were short, polite, distant. I didn't need to say anything. My daughter's loyalty spoke louder than I ever could. I excused us, saying we had plans, and turned to walk away with Ava and Maya. Lena called after me, something about catching up later, but I didn't stop. I didn't need her words or her approval. As we walked to the car, Ava slipped the necklace on, the compass glinting in the sunlight. "I meant what I said up there," she told me. "You're the best." I smiled, my chest full. "You're the best, too." That moment wasn't about Lena, though she'd probably tell herself it was. It was about Ava and me, about the bond we'd kept alive despite everything. Lena could keep her front row life, her new man, her rewritten history. I had something better, my daughter's trust, and the strength I'd built from nothing. As we drove away, I felt lighter than I had in years, like I'd finally closed a door I didn't need to open again. After Ava's graduation, life didn't magically fall into place, but it felt like a new chapter had begun, one I'd earned through years of grit and patience. Ava's words from the stage, her hug, the way she chose me in front of everyone, they weren't just moments. They were proof that the bond we'd fought to keep couldn't be broken. Lena's shadow still lingered, but it was fading, and I was ready to step fully into the light I'd built for myself. A few weeks after the ceremony, Ava made good on something she'd been saying for years. She turned 18, and the moment she could, she packed her bags and moved in with me in Portland. Lena tried to fight it, of course she did. She called Ava, spinning stories about needing her mom, about how I couldn't offer the stability she deserved. But Ava was done with the guilt trips. "I want to be with Dad," she told Lena plainly, and that was that. When Ava showed up at my apartment with a suitcase and a shy smile, I felt like I'd won something bigger than any courtroom could have given me. I kept my promise to her, and she'd kept hers to me. Settling into life with Ava wasn't always smooth. She was a teenager, full of big dreams and stubborn streaks, figuring out who she wanted to be. We had our share of late-night talks, some laughter, some arguments over dishes or curfews. But every day, I saw her relax a little more, like she was finally home. I'd catch her writing in the journal I'd given her, or wearing the compass necklace, and I'd know she felt safe. That was enough. Lena didn't disappear, though. A month or so after Ava moved in, I got a text from her, a casual, "Hey, how's it going?" Like we were buddies catching up. I read it, let it sit, and didn't reply. Not out of spite, but because I had nothing to say. A few days later, another message came, this time softer, suggesting we could co-parent as friends for Ava's sake. I saw it for what it was. Lena testing the waters, trying to find a foothold in a life she'd assumed would collapse without her. I didn't bite. My silence wasn't anger, it was clarity. I didn't need her validation or her games anymore. She kept trying, though, in small ways. She'd text about Ava's college plans, acting like we were a team, or drop hints about meeting up to talk. I stayed polite but distant, answering only when it was about Ava's logistics. I knew why she was reaching out, not because she cared, but because she couldn't stand that I hadn't crumbled. Ava living with me, my steady life with Maya, the way I'd shown up at graduation looking like a man who'd won his own battles. It wasn't the story Lena had written for me. Every time she reached for control, I let her grasp at air. Maya was my rock through it all. Our relationship wasn't loud or flashy, but it was real. She'd sit with Ava and me at dinner, laughing at Ava's bad puns, or join us for hikes in Forest Park. She never pushed to be more than she was, a partner who respected my past and my priorities. When I told her about Lena's text, she just shrugged and said, "She's chasing a ghost. You're not that guy anymore." She was right. I'd let go of the need to prove anything to Lena or to anyone. Looking back, I realized something. When I first walked away from that marriage, when my world was rubble, I thought the only way forward was to make Lena pay. I wanted her to hurt like I had, to see me broken and feel the weight of it. Revenge was a fire that burned hot, until it didn't. Somewhere along the way, I learned that rebuilding quietly is stronger than any vendetta. Every step I took, paying off debts, lifting weights, showing up for Ava, was a choice to build something she couldn't touch. I didn't need to tear Lena down to heal. I just needed to keep rising. If I had to boil it down, 3 lessons stand out from this whole mess, and I carry them like tools I'll never set down. First, pain is a teacher. It's not just something to survive, it's something you can use. When everything fell apart, I thought it was the end, but that hurt showed me what I was made of. I let it shape me, not break me, and it built a foundation stronger than what I had before. You can't outrun pain, but you can let it guide you to something better. Second, silence is power. You don't need to shout or fight or prove your worth to someone who's already decided you're less. Staying focused, doing the work, letting your life speak for itself, that's what shuts down the noise. Lena wanted a reaction, a crack she could slip through. I gave her nothing, not because I was weak, but because I was too busy building something real. Finally, healing is personal. It's not a show you put on for the world. It's quiet, steady yours. I didn't need to announce I was okay. I didn't need Lena's regret or anyone's applause. Healing came from showing up for Ava, for Maya, for myself, day after day. The best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's realizing you don't need it. Now, with Ava asleep in her room and the Portland rain tapping the windows, I feel a kind of peace I didn't think was possible back when I was picking up the pieces. I don't know what Lena's doing these days, and I don't care. My life isn't about her anymore. It's about Ava's laugh, Maya's hand in mine, the work I've got lined up next week. It's about knowing I fell, got up, and kept walking. That's not just a win, it's a life.